The forbidden egg asterisk. The red moons hung low over the dead forest of Alcaran Prime. A thick mist covered the broken trees, and the air smelled of burnt rock. Most creatures avoided this place, they said. The land was cursed, and the curse was real. At the heart of the forest was a black stone nest, and inside it lay something no one dared touch. It was an egg, large as a human skull, covered in silver scales that glowed faintly in the dark. The scales moved slowly like breathing skin. Anyone who came near heard strange whispers in their minds. Some said it was a dragon egg. Others called it a trap left by ancient gods. But everyone agreed on one thing: never touch it. For many years, the egg remained alone. The forest grew quiet. Stories spread from planet to planet. No one wanted to go near the cursed egg until one day, a human named Zeke crash-landed on the edge of the forest. His ship had been hit by a storm of cosmic debris. He was alone, injured, and without food. His calms were dead, and his energy supply was low. The only way to survive was to find shelter. Maybe something in the strange forest nearby, so he walked in, unaware of what lived in the heart of that place. The deeper he went, the more the forest changed. The air turned warm. The trees looked burned, like they had been touched by fire long ago. Zeke felt a strange pull in his chest, like something was calling him. He kept walking until he found the nest. He saw the egg lying there, untouched, glowing faintly at first. He stepped back, then he moved closer, his eyes fixed on the silver shell. He did not hear the whispers others spoke of. Instead, he felt a strange sadness, like the egg had been waiting a long time. Zeke knelt beside the egg and slowly reached out his hand. He touched it. The surface was warm. He expected fire or pain or some curse to strike him. But nothing happened. Suddenly, the glow grew stronger. The egg pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Zeke quickly pulled his hand away, breathing hard, but he saw the shell had changed. A thin crack had appeared. He looked around, expecting danger, but the forest stayed quiet. No monster came, no ghost screamed. It was just him and the egg. Zeke stood, unsure what to do. He could leave it, but something deep in him said no. He took off his jacket, wrapped the egg carefully, and lifted it in his arms. The weight surprised him. It felt heavy with meaning. He carried the egg through the forest, back to the broken wreck of his ship. He placed it inside, near the power core. For warmth, he spoke to it softly, unsure why. Maybe it was the loneliness, maybe it was the way the egg glowed brighter when he spoke. At night, the egg hummed quietly. It shook now and then, like something inside was stretching. Zeke stayed awake, keeping it safe. He had found food rations in a broken crate, and used the last of the water for himself. But when he saw the egg again, he offered it half. He had no idea if it needed food still. He placed the piece of ration bar near it. The next morning, it was gone. The egg had rolled slightly, and now the crack was wider. Zeke smiled for the first time since the crash. He did not know what he had brought into his life, but it no longer mattered. All he knew was that the egg was not cursed. It was alive, and it had chosen him. The morning light pushed through the cracked hull of the ship. Zeke sat beside the egg, his eyes half closed, one hand resting on the floor. He had not slept all night. There was a sound, a soft, wet cracking coming from the egg, and this time, it did not stop. The silver shell broke open with a gentle snap. Thin smoke rose from the crack, curling like fingers inside. Something moved slowly. Zeke leaned closer. His heart beat fast, but not from fear. A small head poked out. Black scales covered in thin slime shimmered under the light. Two glowing violet eyes blinked slowly. The creature was no bigger than a house cat. Its wings were tucked against its sides, and its tail curled like a ribbon. Zeke didn't move. The hatchling made a tiny cry. It sounded broken, like it had never used its voice before. Then, to his surprise, the little dragon tried to crawl toward him. Its legs were weak, its body shaking. With effort, Zeke placed his hand out. Palm open, the dragon pressed its head into his hand and made a soft purring sound. He felt warmth spread through his skin where they touched. It wasn't just heat, it was emotion. The hatchling was lonely. He picked it up gently. The creature curled against his chest, making tiny growls and chirps. Zeke looked into its eyes and saw no evil, no curse, only need, only trust. In that moment, something ancient and invisible clicked into place. The bond was sealed. Zeke didn't know it, but the dragon had chosen him as its first contact across the galaxy. Few had ever made this bond and lived, and none of them had been human. Hours passed. As the hatchling slept beside him, Zeke tried to repair the ship. But the damage was too much. His emergency beacon was still dead. The forest outside remained silent. But he knew it would not stay that way for long. Strange beasts roamed these lands. He made a sling from cloth and strapped the dragon to his chest. He could not leave it alone. Even now, it twitched in sleep, small claws flexing, tiny wings fluttering. It was alive but weak, and it needed him. He stepped out into the forest again this time. He carried more than just his tools. He carried responsibility. The cursed egg was no longer just a story, it was his companion. And now he had to protect it. Strange eyes watched him from the trees. Some creatures growled low in the shadows, others stayed silent, hiding behind burned roots. They knew the scent of the dragon, they feared it, or hated it, or both. Zeke moved quickly, but carefully. He searched for clean water, for fruit, for anything that could help. The dragon awoke twice and cried each time Zeke rubbed its head. Until it slept again, he could feel its emotions pressing against his own. Fear, confusion, and one more thing, hunger, but not just for food. The hatchling was hungry for touch, for safety, for meaning. By sunset, Zeke had found a small cave. He made a fire and laid down beside the hatchling. He gave it pieces of dried fruit and crushed protein. It sniffed, tasted, then slowly began to eat. Zeke smiled. Again, "You're not cursed," he whispered. "You're just like me, alone and forgotten, but not anymore. You're mine now." The hatchling looked at him. With glowing eyes, it blinked slowly, then pressed its snout to his cheek. A soft, warm breath touched his skin, and in the silence, Zeke swore he heard a voice, not his, not the dragon's, but something deep inside him. A whisper. "Protector chosen, bonded." Zeke shivered, but not from cold. Far above the planet, orbiting silently in black space, an old satellite activated. It had been asleep for centuries, but the dragon's hatching had triggered an ancient signal. A red light blinked to life. Then a message began to transmit across the stars. "The cursed blood has awakened. The bond is made. The last dragon lives again." Zeke knew nothing of this. He only knew he had found something worth keeping alive, and he would fight anyone who tried to take it from him. The cave was silent except for the crackling fire and the soft breathing of the hatchling. Zeke sat with his back against the stone wall, his arms wrapped around the small creature outside. The stars were beginning to fade. A new day had started, but something felt wrong. His eyes snapped open when the hatchling growled for the first time. It was low and sharp. Zeke stood quickly and scanned the forest beyond the entrance. Nothing moved, but the hatchling's scales shifted, glowing faint purple in warning. Zeke picked it up and whispered gently, trying to calm it down. He didn't know something ancient had been alerted. The signal from the satellite had reached old enemies. In a war long forgotten, dragonkind had been feared as weapons of nature now. A hatchling meant danger, and those who feared dragons were already moving across the galaxy. Bounty hunters received encrypted messages. The reward was enormous, dead or alive. Some wanted money, others wanted revenge, but all wanted the creature on the forest edge. Movement began. Small drones hovered over trees. Mechanical eyes blinked. Red, they scanned the land, following faint traces of heat and motion. The hunt had begun. Zeke packed his bag quickly. The hatchling stayed close, climbing onto his shoulder with sharp little claws. Its body was stronger now. It could walk, jump, hiss, and even hover for half a second, but it was still a baby. Zeke didn't trust staying in the cave anymore. He needed higher ground. If he could reach the mountain ridge, maybe he could restart his beacon with solar power. He moved fast through the trees, holding the hatchling close, avoiding dry leaves. He did not know eyes were already tracking his steps. From the shadows, a drone spotted him. It sent a silent alert to its master above the clouds. A dark ship opened its wings. Engines whispered alive. The hunter aboard licked his fangs. He had waited years for this kind of prize. Zeke reached the foot of the ridge and stopped to catch his breath. The hatchling looked up at him, eyes glowing again. It was feeling the danger. Zeke touched its head and smiled. "We'll be okay," he whispered. Then came the sound, a soft hum, like bees swarming. Zeke turned and saw them, 5 machines floating toward him, each one the size of a small crate, covered in silver armor. No weapons were visible, but he knew better than to wait. He ran, pushing through bushes and sharp vines. Branches cut his arms, But he didn't care. The hatchling hissed loudly now, wings flapping with panic. A thin purple spark jumped from its mouth. Zeke's eyes widened. "You can do that?" he said, panting, but there was no time to test it. The machines moved faster, weaving between trees with no sound they were gaining. Suddenly, one of the drones zipped ahead and fired a net. Zeke dove to the ground. The net hit a tree and burned through it. He rolled and got back on his feet. Heart racing, the hatchling growled louder than before. Zeke saw a rock path leading upward. He climbed fast, grabbing roots and stones. The hatchling spread its wings and flapped. Trying to help him, they reached a ledge and ducked behind it. The machines hovered just below, scanning. Zeke whispered, "You have to stay quiet." But the hatchling's body glowed brighter now. It wasn't afraid anymore. It was angry. A small orb of violet light formed in its throat. Zeke saw it and grabbed the hatchling's snout gently. "Not now," he said, but it was too late. The orb shot forward like a comet. It hit the nearest drone and exploded in a flash of violet flame. The trees below caught fire. The other drones backed off. Smoke rose into the sky. Zeke pulled the hatchling back and stared. He had just seen real power. The hatchling's body shivered and its eyes dimmed. It had used too much energy. Zeke held it tight and climbed higher, but now he knew this was no normal creature. This was a weapon born from legend. He reached a narrow cave above the ridge and pulled inside. He set the hatchling down gently. It curled up and closed its eyes outside. The sky turned orange with fire. The hunter's ship had seen the blast from his cockpit. The alien smiled. "So, it's true," he said, "a dragon reborn and a human protector. How poetic." The ship began its descent. Zeke didn't know yet, but the real enemy was coming, and this time, no forest could hide them. Clouds split as the hunter's ship descended through the burning sky. Its wings stretched wide, like the skeleton of a great bird. Each engine made no sound, silent and deadly. The black steel hull reflected firelight from the forest below. Inside, the alien hunter adjusted his breathing mask and loaded his weapons. His name was Kor, once a warlord of the flame sectors, now a ghost working in shadows. He had killed rare beasts before: hydras, bone bears, void panthers, but never a living dragon. This mission wasn't about credits. It was about claiming the last of a cursed bloodline for himself. As Kor stepped onto the ground, his boots pressed ash into the soil. He crouched, touched the burned bark, and grinned. He could feel the trail the dragon had hatched recently, still weak, still bondable, but its energy signature was ancient. Zeke sat inside the narrow cave, wrapping a blanket around the hatchling. The creature breathed slowly now, resting after the energy burst. Zeke stared out of the cave's mouth, watching the rising smoke. His mind spun with fear, confusion, and something deeper: anger. Someone had sent machines, and someone powerful had noticed the dragon. Zeke didn't care about ancient curses or old wars. He had found the hatchling first, and no one would take it from him. The dragon stirred and lifted its head. Its violet eyes locked with his. He placed a hand on its back. "I won't let them hurt you," he whispered. The dragon closed its eyes and curled closer to him. Kor activated his visor and scanned the cliffs. Thermal trails glowed bright. He moved fast and low, like a shadow. His claws touched stone, and his eyes narrowed at every flicker of heat above him. The cave waited, unaware of what hunted it. Zeke heard something, a crunch of stone. He grabbed the nearest rock and stood quietly. The hatchling gave a soft hiss. Zeke placed one hand on its head and the other on the cave wall. The sound grew closer. Then a figure appeared at the cave entrance. Not a drone, not a beast at all. Armored alien with silver skin and glowing red eyes. Kor stepped into the cave, smiling through his mask. "So," Kor said, voice smooth and cold, "you're the one who touched it first. How curious. Tell me, human, do you even know what you've bonded with?" Zeke didn't answer. He tightened his grip on the rock. The dragon growled softly, sparks dancing across its throat. Kor took a step closer, raising his gauntlet. "This creature is not yours. It belongs to history. It belongs to war." Zeke stepped in front of the hatchling. His voice was firm. "No, it chose me, and I won't let you take it." Kor laughed. "You think you're strong enough to stop me? You think a soft creature like you can protect a beast meant to burn worlds?" He raised his hand and fired a bolt of energy. Zeke dodged, but the blast scraped his shoulder. He fell to the ground, pain shooting through him. The hatchling screamed, wings spreading wide, its body lit with violet light. Again, Kor turned to fire. A second blast, but the dragon leapt into the air and struck his chest with a spark. Kor stumbled backward. His armor smoking, the hatchling landed beside Zeke. Snarling, Zeke coughed and sat up. Blood on his sleeve, he grabbed a shard of metal from the cave floor and stood again. His knees shook, but he didn't move away. Kor growled, "You don't know. What you've started, this bond will not end with you. More will come, and you will die with it." Zeke looked down at the hatchling. It stood beside him like a guardian. Then he looked at Kor. "If I die protecting it, so be it. At least I'll die." With purpose, the dragon stepped forward and opened its mouth. A deep, thunder-like sound filled the cave. Then came the fire, not red, not orange, but violet flame. It hit Kor full in the chest and sent him flying from the cave entrance. Zeke ran to the edge and looked down. Kor's body slammed into a rock wall below and rolled into the brush. The alien didn't move. Smoke rose from his armor. Zeke looked back at the hatchling and fell to his knees. The creature came close and licked his wounded arm. Its body glowed dim but steady. Zeke smiled weakly. "You saved me. You really are something else." Far above, the broken satellite blinked again. Another signal sent. This time, it reached deeper. Systems older watchers, warships resting in silence, began to stir. Zeke didn't know what was coming. He only knew this wasn't over. They had survived the hunter, but the galaxy had just started to notice the dragon's heartbeat again. Smoke still floated in the air outside the cave. Zeke stood on the ledge, watching the burned trail below. The hunter's body was gone. No blood, no broken parts, just empty ash. The alien had vanished without a sound. The hatchling sat beside him, tail twitching slowly. Its violet eyes never blinked. Zeke ran a hand down its back and sighed. Something wasn't right. He felt it in his bones. The bond had grown stronger since the attack. Zeke could now feel the hatchling's emotions. Fear still lingered inside it, but now something else had joined. Pain, not from the fight, but from something deeper, older, pulling at the creature's heart. "We have to move," Zeke said softly. He packed the last of his supplies, tied them to his belt, and lifted the hatchling gently. It curled against his chest again. He left the cave, following a narrow trail up the mountain. The wind howled, sharp and cold. As he climbed, the air began to change. It felt heavy, like something ancient was watching him. The hatchling growled low. Its claws tightened around Zeke's shoulder. He kept walking, one step at a time, toward the strange presence calling them higher. By midday, he reached a high ridge. There was no forest here, only stone, and in the center of the plateau was a hole wide, dark, and deep. Zeke stepped closer. The hatchling uncurled and looked down into it. A voice rose from the darkness below. It was not sound, but thought, clear, deep, and powerful. Zeke froze. He felt it push into his mind gently, like water flowing through cracks. The hatchling stiffened, eyes wide. "Welcome, last flame. You are not yet whole, but you are awake, and that changes everything." Zeke whispered, "Who's there?" But the voice didn't answer him. It spoke again, but this time to the hatchling. "Come below. Remember who you are. The fire in your blood must return." Without warning, the hatchling leapt from Zeke's arms. It flew into the darkness, wings flapping wildly. Zeke shouted and ran to the hole, but it was gone, swallowed by blackness. He didn't hesitate. He tied a rope around a nearby rock and lowered himself, and the stone walls were cold. His hands shook, but he kept climbing. After minutes of descent, he saw light, soft purple light glowing from the deep. Then he touched the ground. The chamber was massive. Crystal spikes lined the walls, and at the center stood a stone circle glowing with runes. The hatchling hovered above it, eyes shut, body glowing. Zeke stepped forward, but the voice returned. "Do not interfere. Human, the young one must remember its path. This is not a gift, it is a burden, and only it can choose if it will rise again." Zeke stepped back. He watched the hatchling slowly descend onto the stone circle. Its wings stretched wide. Light poured from its mouth, chest, and tail. The runes responded, pulsing with heat and history. Then came visions. Zeke fell to his knees. He saw burning skies, cities made of gold and ash, dragons the size of mountains. He saw the hatchling, not small, not weak, but a creature of terrible power, a god of fire and flight. But then he saw betrayal chains, a circle of alien elders sealing the last dragon egg. Beneath this mountain, they had feared it, called it cursed, and buried its bloodline in silence. Zeke gasped and opened his eyes. The hatchling stood before him, now changed. Its body had grown taller, sleeker. Stronger horns curved back from its head. Its eyes glowed with knowledge. Zeke stood. He expected the creature to roar or fly away instead. It stepped close and pressed its head against his chest. The bond had survived the awakening. But something was different now, the hatchling remembered. Above the mountain, the sky rumbled. Another ship had arrived, bigger than the last, with a sigil of the old warlords inside it. Kor sat on a throne of bone, alive, burned, and full of rage. His voice echoed through the ship. The dragon has awakened, and the human lives no more. Hiding, we end this now. Zeke held the hatchling's face in both hands. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The bond said everything. They would not run. They would fight. The mountain trembled as engines roared above. But Zeke and the dragon did not flinch. Together, they stepped from the chamber into the wind and faced the storm coming for them. The ground shook as the warship descended over the mountain. Rocks cracked under pressure. The wind turned hot above them. The black sky filled with light from the ship's glowing underbelly. Zeke stood beside the dragon, now nearly his height. No longer a hatchling, it spread its wings wide. The wind responded. Flames flickered around its body. Without burning it, Zeke looked up, eyes full of steel. He had no armor, no army, no power, just one truth: he would not let them take the dragon. The mountain's peak was now a battlefield. Dozens of metal pods dropped from the sky. Soldiers in red armor stepped out, weapons glowing. Kor stepped down last. His armor had changed, darker, stronger, and his eyes burned with fury. Stand aside, human. Kor shouted, this creature is not your pet. It is a relic. It belongs to us. We gave peace to the galaxy. By burying its kind, do not make us bury you too. Zeke didn't move. The dragon growled. Its breath sizzled in the cold air. The bond between them pulsed stronger than ever. Zeke took a step forward. No, he said, you buried fear, not peace. You silenced power because it scared you. But this one is not your weapon. It's not your curse. It's my friend. Kor raised his arm. The soldiers pointed their rifles. Energy charged. The sky darkened, as if holding its breath. Then Zeke whispered one word. Fly. The dragon launched upward with a roar that split the clouds. Purple flame burst from its mouth. 3 pods exploded midair. Zeke ducked behind stone as the ground lit with fire. The soldiers opened fire, but the dragon danced between beams, wings like thunder, eyes like burning stars. Zeke ran from cover to cover. He used his environment, trolling stones, smoke clouds, broken metal from old war ruins. He threw a sharp shard into one soldier's eye and grabbed a rifle. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was fighting. Kor growled in frustration. He climbed the rocks to reach Zeke. Blades extended from his arms. This ends now. He roared, but the dragon landed between them with a crash. Its body glowed bright violet. It had changed again. Longer horns, larger chest, voice like a storm. I remember. It said. Its voice echoed through every mind on the mountain. I remember fire. I remember betrayal, and I choose my own path. The soldiers froze. Their hands shook. They had heard of dragons speaking, but never believed. Kor rushed forward. Roaring, he stabbed toward Zeke, but the dragon moved like lightning. Its claws caught Kor's blade. Its teeth clamped around his arm. It threw him across the stone field. Zeke raised his rifle and fired at the fallen warlord. Kor rolled and vanished into smoke. Explosions shook the mountain. The warship fired warning blasts, but dared not strike the dragon directly inside the ship. Systems failed. The ancient codes of the dragons triggered shutdowns. The ship no longer obeyed its masters. The dragon flew above it, wings spread. It opened its mouth wide, and from deep inside, a storm of violet fire erupted. It struck the ship's engines. The warship cracked, groaned, then fell into the forest below in a wall of flame. The soldiers dropped their weapons. Some ran. Some dropped to their knees. Zeke climbed the highest stone. He looked around at the burning wreckage, then up at his companion. The dragon landed beside him. Smoke curled from its nostrils. Its eyes were no longer just glowing. They were alive with knowledge. Zeke placed a hand on its neck. You're free now, he whispered. So am I. The mountain was silent again, but not broken. Zeke and the dragon stood at its peak, wounded but whole across the galaxy. Watchers saw the signals and felt the bond awaken. Some were afraid, others were curious, but all knew the truth. The last dragon had not returned as a destroyer. It had returned with a human. Not a master, not a soldier, but a friend. The wind blew softly. Ash fell like snow. The dragon looked toward the stars. Zeke followed its gaze. Where do we go now? He asked, the dragon spoke one final time, home where fire is not feared, where we write new stories. Together, they left the mountain, not cursed, not hunted, but chosen by each other, a fire and a soul bonded by fate, unbroken by fear. Months passed since the mountain fire and the fall of the warship. The forest grew green again. The sky no longer burned with fear, and in the silence of the valley, a human walked beside a dragon, no longer hiding, no longer hunted. Their story had already begun to spread across systems. In faraway starports, whispers told of a cursed dragon egg that had chosen a human. Some said the dragon had burned an army, others said it had spoken ancient words, calling down the stars. But one thing stayed the same in every story: the human never gave it up. Zeke built a home at the foot of the mountain, not a castle, not a bunker, just a quiet shelter of stone and metal. The dragon slept curled beside the fire, its wings blocking the cold. Zeke trained daily, keeping his body sharp. He knew peace never lasted forever. The bond between them had grown deeper. Zeke didn't need words to speak with the dragon anymore. A thought, a feeling, a glance, it was enough. And the dragon, now called Veer, no longer felt lost. It had purpose. It had someone. Visitors came. Some brought food, some brought questions. One brought a child who had seen Veer in a dream. Zeke welcomed them all, but kept his guard high. Not everyone came in peace. One night, a shuttle landed quietly. An old woman stepped out. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes blind but glowing softly. She bowed to the dragon and spoke in a cracked voice, "You have undone the silence." Zeke stood by Veer's side. The woman reached out a hand and placed it over Veer's heart. "You are not the last. There are others hidden, sleeping, waiting to feel fire again." Veer's eyes burned bright. Zeke looked up. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman smiled gently. "The galaxy needs more than stories. It needs symbols. You two are now one." She handed Zeke a small device. It blinked once, then projected a star map. Dozens of small lights appeared across it. Each one pulsed like a heart. "Eggs," she whispered, "or echoes. Go to them, wake them, or leave them be." She returned to her shuttle and left without another word. Zeke sat beside the dragon that night, staring into the sky. "We're not the only ones anymore," he said. Veer wrapped its tail around his legs gently. Zeke smiled. The next day, they left the valley. No fanfare, no final words, just two beings walking forward into unknown stars. As they traveled from moon to moon, station to station, the story followed them. People welcomed them with firelight and gifts. Children ran toward Veer without fear. Some warriors challenged Zeke in tests of strength. Others asked for guidance. Not all believed, but more and more wanted to. One day, on a shattered moon, they found the first a cracked egg buried under stone. Veer touched it with fire. The shell pulsed. Inside, something moved. A small dragon, different shape, different color, opened its eyes. It hissed once, then purred. Veer wrapped around it like a parent. Zeke stood silent. He had not expected the world to grow again. As they found more hatchlings, the fire spread, not in destruction, but in memory. Veer became a teacher. Zeke became a protector. A name passed from one planet to the next. The man who walked with dragons. Years passed. Zeke aged. Veer did not, but the bond remained. He trained new caretakers, shared his story, told children not to fear what was once forgotten. One night, under a twin moon sky, Zeke sat beside a group of younglings. They asked him to tell the tale again. He laughed softly, rubbed his old scar, and looked toward Veer. Then he spoke. "I didn't find the dragon, it found me. I didn't make it powerful. It always was. All I did was stay when others ran, and that made all the difference." When he passed, the galaxy mourned, not with sorrow, but with fire. On hundreds of worlds, bonfires were lit. Dragons flew above them, and children wore feathers and scales in honor. Veer flew one last time round the star where Zeke was buried, then vanished into the sky. Some say the great dragon watches from the edge of the void. Others say Veer returns every 100 years to whisper stories to brave souls. But one truth remains. No one wanted the cursed dragon hatchling until a human gave it a home, and in doing so, gave the galaxy hope again.